With over 107 unicorns that are valued over $1 billion today, makes India at the top third spot in the startup ecosystem in the world. But however, the macroeconomic conditions have proved very tough, serious conditions for the startup system. To speak to us more on that, joining us here exclusively on NDTV is Mr. Prashanth Prakash, who is a top venture capitalist and, of course, also the chairman of Karnataka's Vision Group for Startups. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV.
Thank you,
First,
Shrija. It's a pleasure to be here.
well, of course, if you could tell us and throw more light about what exactly is happening in the startup ecosystem today as we speak.
Shrija, taking a step back, the world has changed, right? It's no longer the way we thought it was, right? So you had 2 consecutive years where, in spite of COVID, almost 25 to 30 billion dollars of investments came into the country, right? And prior to that, we were somewhere in the 8 to 10 billion dollars. So moving forward, I think we may end up somewhere in between. Definitely not, it's not going to be a 30 billion year in 2023. Now, that's at the actual money flow perspective. Right. But why has this happened, right? So what led to this kind of an environment? I think it was a perfect storm, right? A perfect negative storm in that sense. A perfect negative storm of high liquidity leading to high inflation, macroeconomic environment with headwinds from the war, right? And a macroeconomic environment where there was challenges from China in terms of supply chains becoming more complex and expensive. So companies were importing inflation. So it's not only the internal inflation within these countries. So all in all, I think we had a stock market in the US which had one of the biggest collapses in many years. So this is, for me personally, maybe the third or fourth downturn. So there was the 2000 downturn that I experienced, then the one in 2008, 10, and then a little bit of a minor one in 2016. And now we have what could be something as big or large as the dot-com bust. So that's what has happened.
The impact of the US tech, the collapse. What are your observations of that?
So you've seen that there's been a lot of downsizing in a lot of companies in the US, and I think you will see some impact of that in India too, right? So there is going to be a little bit of rightsizing across multiple roles and platforms, and also I think some of it is going to be performance driven. Macroeconomic is one dimension, but also the need to be profitable while you're growing, right? And do more with less.
Was
right?
this similar phenomenon witnessed a few years ago, or is it just the start of?
I think this is the first time we are seeing it for companies at scale. I think this is a phenomenon of the last decade, and we had one of the largest, uninterrupted bull runs in our history, right? Almost 12, 14 years. But I think the time has come, they have to change gears and start being more introspective on what type of frugality works for each of them, and what resources are really necessary, and what functions are really necessary given their own roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years.
Are you looking at a time frame?
I think this could be another 9 to 12 months. Period of introspection and careful investing,
right,
and a little bit more focus on the portfolio that already companies, the venture funds have, and they will focus a little bit inward while they also look at new companies.
Since we're speaking about, a period of introspection and also a very careful investment that, investors are looking at, will you be able to talk to us more about in terms of down rounds of valuations? what is the impact in terms of investors? What are the investors thinking about it? And how does it actually impact the employees as well?
See, the good news is that a lot of the large unicorns raised enough capital in the last 21, 22 period, right? So a lot of them are well capitalized. So
Right.
they can tide through this period, right? But few of them, of course, may run out of capital. And in many cases, I think the internal investors will be supportive and will see them through. But
Yes.
in other situations, yes, they if they have to raise money for survival, and if they have not grown into the valuations that they raised last time, there could be potential down rounds. But I don't think it will impact and mean a lot for employees. It is growth versus profitability,
Okay.
and companies will slow down in their growth to ensure that they have a good runway and they don't have to raise capital immediately.
Right. So is this a lesson? Will this actually continue? A trend like this?
But cycles have always happened. What we did not have, I mean, the cycles will repeat. I
Right.
mean, like I said, this is the fourth cycle I'm seeing in my lifetime, right?
Right.
So I'm sure there's one or two more in the next 15, 20 years. But I think what I said we have not seen is companies at this scale and an ecosystem that is this large getting impacted from it. That is the first time. We employ millions of people in the
Then
startup ecosystem. So this impact is more real and visible now.
entire the funding for the startup ecosystem slowly, it started coming down, especially post March, I believe. Is this because of the cash crunch and cash flow? What is it like?
See, we as a industry are very still dependent on global capital,
Yes.
right? Almost 70, 80%, less than 10, 20% of our capital is domestic. So if there are hiccups globally, and if global investors are risk averse and risk off, right, as we have seen in the last few months, I think there are going to be periods in which the large rounds that were happening in 21, 22 will definitely reduce. So you will see smaller investments from global investors and not the very large rounds that were happening previously. I think India will see some of that, but not to the extent that we are seeing globally.
So do we know when exactly the investors will start gaining confidence?
So there's the early seed and Series A type of investing that I mentioned. They're already doing, and I think we'll see more of that, right? So there'll be activity in the ecosystem, but larger checks. I think we are starting to see the global investors, like I said, treat India differently, and we are starting to see some amount of investing into India. But if you ask me, when will we see the days like they were in 21, 22? I think at least we are 12 months away.
We have really seen the impact of the US tech companies in terms of layoffs. The impact has been really witnessed, and which even Mr. Prashanth agrees on. But as far as startup is concerned, he does go on to talk about this is just a cycle, and which of course will go at least until about 12 months or so. With Kumar in Bengaluru, Sridhar for NDTV.